Have you ever felt that terrifying moment where you don't even recognize your own reactions anymore? Not the loud kind of stress, but that quiet, heavy kind that sits behind your eyes and steals your patience, slowly convincing you that you're losing the calm you once had? That's exactly why understanding the inner psychology of people who stay steady and unshakable matters right now, because the older you get, the more damage a single emotional misstep can cause to your peace, your relationships, and your sense of control. And this, right here, is the real psychology behind calm people, the part no one ever talks about. But listen, calm people aren't different from you. They just learned one thing you were never taught. And the scariest part? Most people never realize their calm is disappearing until it's already gone. You know that moment where your chest tightens, your thoughts speed up, and a small misunderstanding suddenly feels catastrophic? That's not because you're weak, that's because your mind is overloaded. Some people crumble there, but calm people don't. They feel the same storm, but they don't let the storm choose the outcome. They don't waste time reacting emotionally first. They regulate before they respond. They create psychological space in the exact moment where your mind tells you there's none. What do they do in those first 5 emotional seconds, the seconds where most people ruin everything? They pause. They interrupt the automatic reaction. They refuse to let adrenaline distort reality. Everyone else scrambles for control. Calm people create it. And that's why they look untouchable, not because life is easier for them, but because they refuse to hand their power over to the moment. They know when their body is lying, when adrenaline exaggerates danger, when a small misunderstanding suddenly feels catastrophic, when stress pushes you into urgency that isn't real. They step back mentally, even when chaos is pressing physically. They're not emotionless, they are disciplined. They don't absorb the environment, they observe it. They don't let fear tell the story, they wait for clarity to speak. And here's where it hits home for you, people like you, people with responsibility, history, pressure, expectations. You don't need calm as a luxury, you need it as survival. You have too much to lose by reacting poorly and too much to gain by mastering emotional stability. And if you've ever felt your reactions costing you peace, clarity, or connection, stay with this, because what comes next will reveal the exact mental patterns calm people use to stay grounded when everyone else is falling apart. Most people think calmness is something you feel, but calm people know it's something you build long before life tests you, and this is where the truth gets uncomfortable, because the reason your reactions slip, the reason you lose control in conversations you promised yourself you'd handle better, the reason small problems escalate inside your mind isn't because you're broken. It's because no one taught you the internal system calm people use every single day. And here's the part that hits harder the older you get: emotional control is no longer optional, it decides how your relationship goes, how your workday goes, how your health goes, how your future goes. Calm people understand this deeply, which is why they rely on a psychological habit most people never practice: pre-regulation, the ability to prepare their mind before the stress even arrives. Think about how you normally react: life throws something at you, and you respond from whatever emotional state you're already in. But calm people flip that. They regulate first, then respond. They create rules for their mind the same way disciplined people create rules for their schedule. And here's where the hook sharpens: calm people don't trust their emotions in the moment, they trust their systems. They know that when the pressure hits, your brain becomes a liar, exaggerating threats, shrinking your patience, distorting your judgment. So they create anchors, slow breaths, internal checkpoints, mental distance, controlled framing, simple tools that keep their mind from spiraling into exaggerated conclusions. Most people wait for life to calm down before they calm down. Calm people do the opposite: they calm down before life gives them a reason. That's why they walk into conflict without shaking, why they handle chaos without cracking, why they stay composed while everyone else loses their footing. And here's the part no one wants to admit: your emotional reactions aren't random, they're rehearsed. You've been practicing overreacting for years without realizing it. Calm people have been practicing stability for just as long. This is why their silence is stronger than other people's shouting, why their patience outlasts other people's anger, why their presence shifts the energy of a room without a single word. They don't absorb the tension, they neutralize it. They don't feed the conflict, they slow it. And if you've ever wondered why your peace feels fragile, why one text message ruins your mood, why one stressful moment drains you for hours, it's because you've been relying on hope instead of a system. Calm people lean on habits, not hope. They build mental habits that protect their clarity: delayed reactions, emotional labeling, mindful pauses, intentional breathing, reframing thoughts instead of obeying them. And here's your identity anchor: people like you, thinkers, feelers, carriers of responsibility. You're not supposed to be chaotic inside. You're built for depth, not for noise. And the moment you learn the system calm people use, everything changes. Conversations become easier, stress becomes lighter, and your mind becomes a place you can trust again. Stay with this, because the next module will reveal the exact psychological tools calm people rely on in real time, the ones that quietly turn emotional storms into manageable moments every single day. What most people never realize is that calmness isn't something you apply after the chaos hits, it's something you activate during the chaos, in those tiny, invisible micro-moments where your brain is deciding whether to think, or to panic. And this is where calm people separate themselves from everyone else, because they understand one thing emotionally overwhelmed people never pay attention to: the mind reacts before you do. Your thoughts speed up before your mouth does. Your body tenses before your words form. Your breathing shortens before you even know you're stressed. Calm people know this chain well, and they interrupt it early. Most people live on autopilot: something frustrates them, something scares them, something embarrasses them, and instantly, without question, they react. But calm people, they catch the reaction before it becomes a reaction. They're masters of internal interception. They notice the thought before it spirals, they notice the emotion before it explodes, they notice the trigger before it hijacks the whole day. And here's the part people hate hearing: emotional reactions don't come from the moment, they come from your interpretation of the moment. Calm people interpret differently. Where most people say, "This is bad," calm people say, "This is information." Where most people say, "This is personal," calm people say, "This is a projection." Where most people say, "This is unacceptable," calm people say, "This is temporary." And that mental framing is exactly what gives them control when everyone else is losing theirs. But the real hook is this: calm people rely on response flexibility, the psychological skill of having multiple ways to respond instead of just reacting emotionally by default. Most people have one reaction, whatever their adrenaline chooses. Calm people have 5, 10, 12 different internal options. They can delay. They can detach. They can question the thought. They can breathe through the tension. They can watch the emotion instead of becoming it. This is why you can't shake them: they have space inside themselves. They don't collapse into every feeling. They don't obey every fear. They don't get dragged by old wounds into new arguments. And here's where the identity hits you: people like you, people who've lived through enough stress, disappointment, responsibility, life's heavy seasons. You're not meant to be reactive. You're meant to be anchored. Your nervous system is tired of chaos. It's craving stability. And calm people have mastered the tools that give them that stability in real time: slowing the breath to slow the mind, naming emotions before they become storms, questioning thoughts that feel urgent but aren't, replacing instinctive reactions with intentional ones, and treating the moment like a puzzle instead of a threat. That's why calm people don't fall apart, not because life is kinder to them, but because they've built a mind that doesn't collapse under pressure. And if you've ever wished you could do the same, stay with this, because the next module will expose the deeper psychological habits calm people practice daily, the ones that rewire their emotional reactions so deeply that chaos no longer controls them. Have you ever noticed how some days you wake up perfectly fine, and then one tiny thing flips your entire mood? A tone in someone's voice. A delay. A text you weren't ready for. A responsibility you forgot. And suddenly your chest tightens, your mind spins, and your calm disappears like it was never there. Listen closely, because this part matters more than you think. Most people assume they lost their calm in the moment, but that moment is never the real cause. The real destruction happens before the reaction, in the hidden psychological triggers that build up quietly, silently, invisibly, until they explode. And here's the truth nobody tells you: calm people aren't calm because life is easy, they're calm because they know exactly what triggers try to hijack their mind, their emotions, and their patience. They study those triggers the way a pilot studies turbulence, not to avoid it forever, but to navigate it without fear. And if you don't know your triggers, they will run your life without ever asking your permission. Let's expose the biggest one, the trigger that ruins the day for millions of people over 30, the fear of losing control. Not physical control. Emotional control. The fear that one bad moment means everything else will fall apart. The fear that if you react wrong once, you'll react wrong all day. Calm people feel this fear too, but here's the difference: they notice the moment their chest tightens. They notice the shift in their breathing. They notice when their inner voice starts speeding up. They notice the micro-stress before it becomes a meltdown. Most people don't, they only realize it when they're already snapped, already overwhelmed, already regretting the reaction they wish they could take back. Another hidden trigger. Old emotional leftovers. The stuff from yesterday, last week, last month, the conversations you didn't finish, the frustrations you swallowed, the responsibilities you delayed. These things don't disappear. They pile up behind your calm like weights you don't remember picking up. Calm people don't wait for an explosion, they unload emotional weight as it shows up. They don't carry resentment into the next day. They don't drag yesterday's arguments into today's decisions. They don't let old tension poison new moments. And the psychology behind it is simple: emotional residue magnifies stress by 300% when ignored. That's why a small problem suddenly feels like a life-size disaster. But here's the one that hits the hardest: self-pressure, the silent trigger that destroys people between 30 and 50. The pressure to be responsible. The pressure to not mess up. The pressure to keep everyone happy. The pressure to manage everything perfectly. Calm people aren't free from pressure, they're free from pretending pressure doesn't affect them. They acknowledge it. They breathe through it. They let it rise without letting it control their behavior. That's the difference. And the research is clear: the moment you stop pretending you're unaffected, your nervous system stops fighting itself. Now here's the twist: none of these triggers are about the situation. They're about your interpretation. That's the psychology calm people master. They don't fight the trigger. They expose it. They name it. And when you name the trigger, it loses power, because the mind can't be controlled by something it fully understands. And you want to know the scariest part? Most people go their entire lives blaming situations, people, or stress, without ever realizing their reactions were triggered long before the moment even happened. But not you. Not anymore. Because now you're seeing the truth calm people live by. You don't lose your calm in the moment, you lose it in the buildup. And once you learn to track the buildup, everything starts changing. That if you're ready, let dives into the daily system calm people use to stay in control no matter what life throws at them. Why do some people stay calm, focused, and unshakable even when life throws chaos at every corner? It's not luck. It's not genetics. It's a system, a daily rhythm that trains their mind, protects their energy, and makes calmness automatic. And here's the part most people miss: you can't rely on willpower alone. The willpower model fails because life isn't waiting for you to be disciplined. Calm people know this, and they don't leave their peace to chance. They've built a routine that makes calm inevitable. Every morning, they prime their mind. They start with a ritual, small but intentional, that signals to their nervous system: today, I am grounded. Today, I am in control. It might be a few minutes of mindful breathing, a cold shower that sharpens alertness, or journaling to unload yesterday's emotional residue. These aren't arbitrary habits, they're anchors, tiny investments in emotional stability. And the payoff is immediate. When the day hits its first curveball, their mind isn't scrambling. Their body isn't screaming. Their nervous system is already trained to respond instead of react. But calmness isn't just a morning thing. Throughout the day, they monitor energy like a hawk. Most people ignore energy leaks, gossip, scrolling endlessly, reacting to minor frustrations, and wonder why they feel frazzled by noon. Calm people protect their energy. They set boundaries, sometimes invisible, sometimes explicit, because they understand that one drained moment can topple hours of composure. And they layer it with micropauses, a few breaths before a meeting, a deliberate sip of water instead of mindless coffee, a short walk instead of stewing over a problem at the desk. These microhabits aren't glamorous. They aren't flashy. But together, they build a mental fortress. Here's a fear most people never confront: your calm doesn't survive chaos you're unprepared for. That's why calm people practice scenario awareness. They anticipate emotional storms before they hit. A difficult conversation, a work crisis, a family argument, they think through it calmly in advance. They map out not rigid responses, but flexible options. That's the psychology of preparedness, having mental patterns ready to deploy before panic even arrives. And here's the identity anchor: people like you, who've spent decades juggling responsibility, disappointment, and life's unpredictable curveballs. You already understand the cost of losing calm. You felt it erode patience, clarity, and energy. The system calm people follow is basically a set of tools that anyone with experience like yours can implement to regain that stability. And here's the kicker: evening matters as much as morning. Calm people close the day intentionally. They review, reflect, and release. They unload mental baggage so it doesn't carry over. They celebrate small wins quietly, without drama, and they create space to rest, because stress recovery is as deliberate as focus itself. The psychology behind this is simple but profound: calm isn't just a trait. It's a practice. It's intentional. It's repeated patterns that wire the mind for resilience, clarity, and measured action. And the most powerful part? Over time, these routines don't just protect calm, they expand it. The more consistently you practice them, the less reactive your nervous system becomes. You stop overthinking. You stop being manipulated by small annoyances. You stop collapsing under pressures that would have destroyed you 5 years ago. Calmness becomes not just a state, it becomes your baseline. And if you've ever wanted that kind of life, where chaos doesn't control you, where tension doesn't hijack your mind, where clarity and presence guide every action, this is the blueprint. This is what calm people do while everyone else is scrambling, reacting, and losing their peace. And when you start implementing just a few of these daily habits, you'll notice something terrifying and beautiful at the same time. Your reactions start changing before you even realize it. You'll catch yourself pausing instead of exploding, thinking instead of panicking, observing instead of overreacting. That's the real power, small consistent actions creating unstoppable internal composure. And that, right there, is the psychology of calm people made practical. Here's the uncomfortable truth most people never admit: you can practice calm, you can build routines, you can train your breathing, and yet, if your mindset is scattered, none of it sticks. That's why calm people aren't just disciplined, they think differently. They've made a series of subtle, almost invisible mental shifts that permanently protect their peace. And this is the psychology nobody talks about. The first shift: acceptance without resignation. Calm people don't waste energy arguing with reality. They face the facts, no sugarcoating, no denial, and no panic. Life is unfair, unpredictable, messy, and they've stopped pretending otherwise. Most people resist this truth, and that resistance fuels emotional chaos. But the calm ones? They accept, and in that acceptance, they find space to act, to respond, to live fully without being hijacked by every obstacle. Then there's perspective mastery. They don't see life in the tiny, urgent, panic-inducing fragments most people obsess over. They see patterns, connections, cycles. They know that setbacks are temporary, that pain teaches, and that discomfort isn't failure, it's information. And here's the microhook you need to feel: most people live trapped in the immediacy of emotion. Calm people live in the awareness of time. That tiny shift, noticing the bigger picture, separates panic from presence. The next shift is emotional sovereignty. Calm people know that no external event or person should dictate their internal state. Criticism, chaos, rejection, or loss may knock at the door, but it does not enter unless invited. Most people hand over their emotional power on a daily basis, unaware of how freely they surrender it. Calm people reclaim it. They become the gatekeepers of their own mind. And here's a fear you can relate to: if you're like most people over 30, you've felt your patience thin, your temper snap, your mind spin uncontrollably, and it scares you. Calm people recognize that fear. They don't suppress it. They analyze it. They learn from it. That's why self-reflection becomes a superpower, the ability to notice triggers, patterns, and reactions before they become crises. Then there's strategic detachment. Not apathy, not coldness, but the skill to distance your identity from the chaos around you. They don't take things personally unless they deserve it. They don't let temporary discomfort redefine permanent self-worth. Most people feel every slight like a wound, calm people let it pass like a breeze. And it works because they combine that with deliberate optimism. Not naive hope, not forced positivity, but the consistent belief that challenges are navigable, that resilience exists in everyone, and that every storm ends, eventually. This mindset fuels courage and steadiness simultaneously. And identity matters here. If you're someone who's been juggling responsibilities, feeling the weight of expectations, tired of emotional chaos, this mindset is designed for you. Because it rewires how you relate to yourself and others. Finally, the psychology of permanent calm relies on choosing long-term mental economy over instant emotional gratification. Calm people don't react for temporary release. They pause, evaluate, and respond in ways that protect energy, clarity, and relationships. That pause, that deliberate space, is where mastery happens. Every reaction becomes intentional. Every decision becomes aligned. Every moment builds momentum toward composure. And here's the kicker: once these mindset shifts are internalized, calmness stops being a practice and becomes a state of being. The nervous system rewires. Emotional storms no longer hijack thoughts. Perspective becomes instinct. Awareness becomes second nature. You stop chasing calm, it becomes your default. And the terrifying part for everyone else: they can't teach it. They can't force it. It must be lived, day by day, choice by choice, until it becomes you. And the liberating part? You realize that the world can throw everything it has at you, yet your internal world remains untouchable. That's the ultimate psychology of calm people, the secret blueprint hidden behind quiet confidence, deliberate responses, and unshakable presence. And once you see it, you can't unknow it. Because it changes how you move, speak, and exist. It rewires your identity, your perception, and the very rhythm of your life. Calmness becomes your natural state. Not because life is easier. Not because you have fewer storms. But because you've trained yourself to navigate any storm, without losing yourself in the process.